Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. We are already done with the introduction of respiration. Now let us discuss the respiratory system in human beings. It is the system of organs through which the respiration takes place. As you have already studied about the digestive system, the digestive system is the system of organs through which the digestion takes place. Here you are studying the respiratory system. Now the respiratory system of human beings, it consists of nose, and then pharynx, then larynx, then trachea, and then lungs, and then diaphragm. As you can here also see, this is the nose, and then this portion is called the pharynx, and then below the pharynx there is the part called the larynx, and then after the larynx there you can see the trachea, which is also called as the windpipe, and then after the trachea we have got two lungs here, right lung and the left lung, and then below the lungs there is a dome-shaped muscular membrane that is called the diaphragm. Now let us discuss them one by one. It is just the respiratory system. We are not discussing the mechanism of respiration here. That I will discuss in my next lecture. So here, first of all, we have got a part of the respiratory system, that is the nose, which is the most important part because we inhale through our nose. Nose consists of different parts, like it has external nares, and then nasal cavity, and then nasal cavity is divided into three parts, that is vestibule, conditioner, and olfactory region. Then there are internal nares. So it is divided into three parts. First of all, external nares. External nares are the openings of the nose, which are also called as the nostrils. They are the slits, or we can say the openings of the nose. And then inside our nose we have got the cavity, which is called the nasal cavity, and nasal cavity is divided into two nostrils by means of a nasal septum. Now this cavity, nasal cavity, it is divided into three parts. Number one is vestibule, and second one conditioner, and third one olfactory region. Vestibule, this vestibular part, it consists of the hairs, and then there are some oil glands also. So these oil glands, they secrete some secretions, and the hairs, they just trap the dust particles and other microorganisms there, so they help in filtering the air. And then you have got another part above the vestibule, that is the conditioner. Inside the conditioner, it is just a pinkish or reddish in color. It has the glands which secrete the secretions like water or mucus, watery secretions and mucus. So there are mucus glands present in the conditioner, and inside the conditioner there are some bones which are called the nasal conchae. They are also present inside it. Then you have got the olfactory region. Olfactory region is responsible for olfaction, or you can say it is responsible for carrying the sensations of the smell. Then you have the internal nares. That will just carry on, and it will go down towards the pharynx. Now you have the pharynx. Pharynx is just below your skull. Here it is found. This part is called the pharynx. I have shown in the diagram. Here it is the pharynx. And this pharynx is divided into many parts. First of all, there is the part which is just below the internal nares, that is the nasopharynx. Because the nasal cavities, once the nasal cavities they go inside into the respiratory system, you will just find the nasopharynx inside, and then after that you will find the oropharynx. Oropharynx is the common passage for the digestive system and the respiratory system. It is the common passage for digestive system and respiratory system. And then you have got laryngopharynx here. This is the laryngopharynx, part of the pharynx. And inside the laryngopharynx there is a slit or opening called the glottis. This is the glottis, or we can say the opening. And this glottis is protected by a flap-like structure which is called the epiglottis, or you can say इसके ऊपर एक ढक्कन जैसा होता है ग्लॉट्स के ऊपर, इसे हम एपिग्लॉट्स कहते हैं। और ये एपिग्लॉट्स जो है, जब भी हम कोई चीज़ खाते हैं, ये उस खाने वाली चीज़ को स्लिप नहीं होने देता है इस विंड पाइप में या ट्रैकिया में। तो उस टाइम ये बंद रहता है और वो जो भी चीज़ हम खाते हैं वो सीधा चला जाता है फूड पाइप में, जिसे हम इसोफेगस भी कहते हैं, क्योंकि ये वाला जो ट्रैक्ट है ये इसोफेगस है। तो जब ये बंद रहता है तो सीधा इसोफेगस में चला जाता है। लेकिन जब हम बात करते हैं तो बात करते वक्त ये खुल जाता है, ये उठ जाता है, तो एयर वगैरह जो है वो चला जाता है ट्रैकिया में। दैट्स वाई वी शुड नॉट टॉक व्हाइल ईटिंग समथिंग। सो ये हो गई बात ग्लॉट्स, और इसके ऊपर जो लिड है दैट्स कॉल्ड द एपिग्लॉट्स। नाउ you will find the part below the pharynx, that's called the larynx, or we can say the voice box also. And जो ये larynx होता है, यहाँ पर ही हमारी आवाज़ जो है वो प्रोड्यूस हो जाती है। larynx बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट है, क्योंकि larynx जो है it is made up of different types of the cartilages, like it is made up of the C-shaped cartilage, which is called the thyroid cartilage. And you can also call it as the Adam's apple. You can feel your Adam's apple, for it is most prominent in the men, and you can feel it just by touching your throat, and that's called the Adam's apple, and you can see it. Then there are the cartilages called the Arytenoid Cartilage, which is a triangular cartilage inside the larynx, and there are other types of the cartilages called the cricoid cartilage, and cricoid cartilages are circular in shape. The cricoid cartilages, they have got the cartilaginous nodules also, or a lump-like structure. इनके ऊपर एक वो lump-like structure होता है, which is called the Santorini cartilage. And there is also a pair of vocal cords present inside the larynx, जिनसे आवाज प्रोड्यूस हो जाती है। जब vocal cords के अंदर air चला जाता है, तो by the modulations of the tongue and lips and all teeth, the voice is produced in the vocal cords, and we can say our larynx, it is the voice box. So larynx के बाद जो structure यहाँ से rise हो जाता है, that's called the trachea. Trachea is a long tube-like structure. It is made up of the cartilaginous structures, cartilage, and trachea is around 16 to 18 centimeters. It is around 16 centimeters, 12 to 16 centimeters long, around 12 to 16 centimeters long. And it has the cartilaginous rings present inside it, and it has also the stratified columnar epithelial lining inside the trachea. This trachea, once it goes down into the thoracic cavity, this is the thoracic cavity, and then under your thoracic cavity you have got abdominal cavity, but our lungs are present inside the thoracic cavity. जो चेस्ट कैविटी होती है उसे थोरेसिक कैविटी कहते हैं। तो इसमें ये ट्राइकिया डिवाइड हो जाता है into two parts, into two branches, और उन दो ब्रांचेस को कहते हैं हम, दे आर कॉल्ड द ब्रोंकाई, और ब्रोंक्स हियर इज द लेफ्ट ब्रोंकस एंड दिस वन इज द राइट ब्रोंक्स। और ये जो ब्रोंक्स है जब ये लंग्स में इंटर हो जाते हैं, एंड दिस हियर यू शुड रिमेंबर दैट द लेफ्ट ब्रोंक्स इज इट्स अराउंड 5 सेंटीमीटर्स फार फ्रॉम द ट्रैकिया। ये थोड़ा सा लंबा होता है फ्रॉम दिस राइट वन। ये क्यों लंबा होता है? क्योंकि जब ऊपर से हवा आती है, फिल्टर होके आती है नोज से, देन ट्राइकिया से, तो एयर पहले चला जाता है राइट ब्रोंक्स में, क्योंकि राइट ब्रोंक्स जो है इट इज जस्ट 2.5 सेंटीमीटर्स लॉन्ग, और जो लेफ्ट ब्रोंक्स है ये 5 सेंटीमीटर्स लॉन्ग होता है, 5 सेंटीमीटर्स लॉन्ग। तो अगर एयर में अभी भी कोई डस्ट पार्टिकल्स वगैरह मौजूद हैं तो इन्फेक्शन ज्यादा चांसेस हैं राइट लंग के होने के। तो लेफ्ट लंग जो है वो बच जाता है, क्योंकि लेफ्ट लंग के पीछे हार्ट होता है, कार्डियक नाच होता है, तो ये इन्फेक्शन से बच जाता है। That's why it is a bit longer than this right bronchi. तो bronchus जब इंटर हो जाता है into the lungs, तो अब यहाँ पे lungs जो most important part है, जो most important part play करते हैं in the process of the respiration, अब हम lungs के बारे में देखेंगे थोड़ा सा, लेकिन उससे पहले हम देखेंगे जो as soon as these bronchi they enter inside the lungs, they divide into the first of all they divide into primary bronchioles, then they divide into secondary bronchioles, and then after that. So we were talking about the trachea. Trachea, once it enters into the lungs, it gets divided into two branches. Here is the left branch and right branch. They are called the bronchs, and bronchs are divided into they get divided into further branches, which are called the primary bronchioles, and then primary bronchioles into the secondary bronchioles, and then into respiratory bronchioles, and then into alveolar ducts, and finally they find their place inside the air sacs called the alveoli. and these alveoli, they just resemble the structure of the bunch of grapes. As here you can see, it is just like the bunch of grapes. These are around 300 to 400 million alveoli present inside our lungs, and these are the sites, these alveoli are the sites where the exchange of the gases takes place, where oxygen mixes up with our blood and carbon dioxide is released into the alveoli for exhalation. That is entirely a different topic, exchange of gases, and that I would like to discuss in some other lecture. Now let us discuss the most important organ of the respiratory system, that is the lungs. We have got a pair of lungs in our thoracic cavity. This is the thoracic cavity, or we can say the cavity which is just under our ribs or inside our ribs. That's called the thoracic cavity. And this inside this thoracic cavity you can find your lungs. And then below this thoracic cavity there is a partition called the diaphragm, and that also I would like to discuss here. Then below the diaphragm there is a cavity called the abdominal cavity from here. Now inside this thoracic cavity there are a pair of lungs. These lungs are spongy, they are very much spongy, and they are conical in shape. As you can see here, they are reddish gray in color. And the left lung, this is right and this is left. Left lung is a bit bigger than the right one because it has to adjust the caudate notch from behind here. And then this left lung is divided into only two parts, which is called, this one is called the superior part and this is called the inferior part. But this right lung is divided into three parts, that is superior part, then middle part, and then inferior part. This is superior, this is middle, and this one is inferior part. And now these lungs, they are covered by a sac called a pleural sac. This pleural sac, it has the outer layer which is called the outer parietal pleura, and then inner one that's called the inner visceral pleura. And there is a gap between the two which is called the pleural cavity. And this pleural cavity, it contains the fluid which is called the pleural fluid. And this cavity is around 0.02 mm. And this pleural fluid, it protects the lungs from the jerks and shocks and other things, from the mechanical injuries. So if there is any sort of the inflammation inside this pleural sac, we call that condition as pleurisy. That is because of some infections and dust, dirt, or some other particles, and that condition is called the pleurisy, which I have written here. So now these lungs, this is a brief, this is the brief structure of the lungs. But here I would like to add once again that, as I have already told you, there are around 300 to 400 million alveoli or air sacs present inside these lungs, where the exchange of the gases takes place. Now, after these lungs, there is a dome-shaped muscular partition here. As you can see here, this is the dome-shaped muscular partition. And this dome-shaped muscular partition or muscular membrane, it is called the diaphragm. And this diaphragm, it is connected with the vertebral column from behind and with the ribs by a type of muscles, and those muscles are called phrenic muscles. Those muscles are called the phrenic muscles. ये जुड़ा हुआ होता है हमारे वर्टिब्रल कॉलम के साथ और विद द रिब्स मसल्स के जरिए, और उन मसल्स को हम फ्रेनिक मसल्स कहते हैं. एंड दिस डायफ्राम, इट हेल्प्स इन इंस्पिरेशन एंड एक्सपिरेशन, और यू कैन से इन inhalation of the air and exhalation of the air. And now we can move towards the mechanism of the respiration. This is all about the respiratory system, that mechanism of the respiration that I would like to discuss in my another lecture.